Good evening. This is Maestro Critello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 3v3 on Arena of Ashes, and our first player today is Nurland, Texas Ranger, playing as the Chaos Lord. This is a tanky melee hero walking around in Terminator armor. He can tie things up. He also has a combi bolter that he can use to do some range damage. He can do even better range damage if you get the combi flamer, or you can do even better melee damage if you get the lightning claws or the blood maul. Next up, we have yet another Chaos Lord. This one is played by Sir Topi. And then finally on the blue team, we have Max Power playing as the Force Commander. So we have a team of tanky melee heroes, Team Tanky Melee. This one is the Force Commander. He can be knocked down and suppressed, unlike the Chaos Lord, but he is still very, very powerful in his own right. He can use Battle Cry to buff his troops, as well as do knockback with every strike, which is very good for countering melee. And he also has some very good scaling Tier 2 war gears with things like the Power Fist and the Thunder Hammer and the Teleporter Pack. On the other team, our first player is Aesthetically Pleasing. I actually like this name very much. It's very, I don't know, sort of intellectual. There's certainly big words. Aesthetic is a big word. But he's playing as the Apothecary. The Apothecary is a healing commander. He starts out fighting in melee. As a melee fighter, he doesn't really do a whole lot besides tie up, but he's definitely got... The Apothecary definitely has a lot of utility, starting out with his healing, but then he has utility with other things, including purification vials, as well as purification rites, and the mastercrafted bolter. Next up, we got GiDDoLo as yet another Force Commander. This one is the Dark Angels Force Commander, so he's got those dual toothbrushes on his helmet so that he can brush his teeth. And then finally, we have classy Brother Captain David playing as the Commissar Lord. This one is in retreat. The Commissar Lord is a slightly tanky melee hero. He starts out with a free energy shield, but it is the worst energy shield in the game. You want to get this guy into melee, but he's not quite as durable as the other melee heroes. And he does a little bit more support by executing them, shooting them in the head to make them fight harder. Looks like blue team got the better end of the engagements down in the middle. They certainly control the contested victory point right now, while David was getting forced back. David, going for... Right now he only has double guardsmen, which does seem like a bit of a risky and underpowered build. Just double guardsmen by themselves is not a terribly strong build, and I hope he doesn't pay for it in terms of losing engagements down in the bottom. That being said, right now it does look like he's fighting alone against two. Who else is in the middle with him? Normally that would be GiDDoLo, but GiDDoLo's not there yet. He's still up healing and base, so David's right now fighting by himself, and he's actually losing quite handily to this combination of Max Power and Sir Topi. So Sir Topi going with a double Chaos Space Marine build. Combination of that and the Chaos Lord makes Sir Topi's army... He's got a decent amount of range fire, but more importantly, he's got a very, very durable army going ahead. And we have... So a lot of the players right here are choosing to emphasize durability. We got tanky melee heroes, and then on top of that, double tax, so very tough range squads. But I think classy Brother Captain David actually chose to make a heavy weapon team his third squad. So it took him a little longer to get that out than something like a Sentinel or even a third Guardsman, because it just always takes longer to get out a squad that costs power than at the start of the game. You can always just decide to get 3 squads that don't cost any power, just using all that starting requisition income before you actually have power. And there are considerations to make for that. If you choose to, if you choose not to get a third squad that costs no power, you can be handicapping yourself a little bit at the start, because you're definitely going to be spending more time with fewer squads potentially compared to your opponent. But it's usually just done for basically as a compositional choice, as in they want to make that compositional decision to substitute a power squad, or substitute a non-power squad with a power squad. Alright, meanwhile up here We got heretics being chased off. Looks like they were just fighting against far too many things. Nurland is up top right now. He is by himself because this is Aesthetically Pleasing is in the top lane with him, but Aesthetically Pleasing chose to go down to support his teammates. GiDDoLo now pushing back Max Power, getting in range with this Devastator. That could be the end of the Devastator already, and in fact it is. Devastator derps a little bit. David, meanwhile, actually still having a lot of trouble, and, well, to be honest, he's actually still fighting too. I think he's mostly lucky not to be losing anything, but I think all of his units are forced off, except for the Commissar, but now he is forced off. And we actually have GiDDoLo going for a flank. I think this is actually extremely risky, considering he actually moved most of his units away. He's probably going to just want to retreat the Force Commander out of there, but the Force Commander might go down anyway if we just have Force Melee from the attacks. Very, very smart. And the range fire, it's getting a very close call, but it might just still finish him off. Meanwhile, scouts were lost for Max Power, and the Force Commander does finally go down, but in that position, that's actually not such a bad position for him to go down. These scouts are in a bad position. Oh, doing that shotgun blast unfortunately cost them their lives. And just that positioning of having your units over here and having to retreat all that stuff really just potentially could have been very, very dangerous, and it proved to be risky, and GiDDoLo lost both his Force Commander as well as a Scout Squad. The Force Commander loss, not as big of a deal as long as David can get over here and do a repair. We actually have double setup teams from Sir Topi, which can be very, very powerful against Imperial Guard. GiDDoLo himself does not have any Assault Marines, so that could be very powerful against him too. But David actually about to wipe, and in fact wipes one of the setup teams. So good play. One of the things we noticed right there that David did really well was that he split his units, and that meant once he was able to force off one setup team, the other one could only target one of his squads. And this heavy weapon play from David is actually pretty nice. It does get jumped on right there, and now he's actually getting quite overwhelmed, and he also wants to make sure he gets his... Oh no, he's going to lose the heavy weapon team. Very, very close call. Can the Assault Marines finish it off with bolt pistol shots? And they do, in fact. So that's a little disappointing. And now David, again, just stuck with a double Guardsman build. Double Guardsman, definitely not a sufficient Imperial Guard build. Triple Guardsman can be, but he doesn't have Triple Guardsman. But GiDDoLo actually went for a very short Tier 1, and now he's already got a Razorback out on the field at a time when none of the blue team players are actually equipped to deal with that. Now, given just the damage that he has right here, right now Nurland, or Sir Topi rather, is actually distracting all of these units with the Chaos Lord being incredibly durable, and that's allowing these Flamers over here to continue to just bash the power, even though they actually have people defending. But the Chaos Lord just gets so tanky because he has both the Harness of Rage and the Dark Halo, gives him an energy bubble, as well as the Harness of Rage, which allows him to restore energy with every strike. So the Chaos Lord with this build is very, very, very tanky. Now, the main disadvantage to this build is that since he's using energy for his energy shield, that does lock him, kind of lock him out of using actual spells with that energy. I mean, he technically still can, but then he actually gives up some of his tankiness. So we probably won't be seeing any, and he already chose to get the Harness of Rage rather than the Mantle of Hate or the Armor of the Inferno, so we won't see either of the spells that come from those armors. But GiDDoLo's actually in a pretty nice place now in terms of this Razorback being out on the field. He's actually just harassing the Assault Space Marines. Assault Marines, I mean, Tactical Marines jump right in before they can even get disrupted. And if he acts quickly enough, if he can force off the Force Commander, but the Force Commander upgrading to the Power Fist right in the heat of the moment, almost gets a Flesh over Steel. GiDDoLo has very good reactions and actually managed to micro it out right as the Flesh over Steel was happening. And GiDDoLo very curiously with a double plasma gun build. That's very, very interesting, and I think that might also not such a good choice now that this Blood Crusher is out on the field. Probably could have used the versatility of having at least one of those with the missile launcher. Meanwhile, we got a Blood Crusher from Nurland going up top. He's there mostly by himself again, although Nurland hasn't yet captured the natural VP. Blue team right now actually lower on VPs. I feel, for the most part, the No, the red team is lower on VPs, and yet I feel that the red team has had the better end of nothing. I don't know what they've had the better end of. I think, actually, I would say the blue team has generally had the better end of engagements and map control, and they've been bashing more generators. But GiDDoLo was nevertheless able to get to Tier 2 pretty fast. Classy brother Captain David now just went straight for a Manticore. So this is, I mean, this is definitely very much teams-oriented play. I think it's difficult to stick with as short of the builds as he's doing and still contribute a lot. Certainly the Manticore is definitely going to contribute a lot in a team's game. A very nice Manticore strike from, oh my god, 3 Chaos Space Marine models came very, very close to wiping one of those squads entirely. So Nurland, no, that was Sir Topi with relatively short, oh my god. That was a really, really bad friendly plasma cannon shot. Oh, nice play. Teleporting in to finish off that Commissar Lord. It won't be such a hard revive, again, for GiDDoLo. But the Force Commander is very, very good at getting kills on heroes or any other single entities or just models, period, with the Power Fist because it does a huge amount of burst damage. Ooh! Friendly plasma cannon shot, killing 2 TAC models. Need to be very, very careful with those plasma cannon shots, and I mean those are his own TAC models. He even took out one of the sergeants, I think. But now it's going to be Max Power's turn to lose a Force Commander, but actually the Assault Space Marines don't do anything this time. Don't chase after with their bolt pistol shots. Another Manticore strike right on top of this Plasma Cannon Devastator. Just retreats out of there to save itself. And David is now back down here, capturing the contested victory point. And now he also has Ogrins. And one of the things I also noticed is that classy brother Captain David has Bionic Eye. So we might see him combine that with the Ogrins, which is it's a very costly, but at the same time, extremely powerful combination. Bionic Eye, in addition to increasing the damage of a squad, also gives them defensive benefits, which can be very powerful with the already tanky Ogrins. So we'll see how well that's used. David has also been rocking the Power Sword, which is generally a pretty good choice against Power Armor because it's a power melee weapon, significantly increases his damage in Tier 1, as well as giving him that Lead by Example ability, which has a number of uses. It can be used like Battle Cry, to get him to do knockback with every strike to counter melee or just knock things over and disrupt them. Or it can even also be used as a way of, as a flanking tool, as a aggression tool, because it also gives you a speed boost. You can get in, quickly tie things up. Flesh over Steel hits. And this, why isn't it moving at all? Oh, but the Force Commander, oh, I was going to say, I thought that Razorback was going to be safe because the Force Commander went down, but there was a missile attack here to finish that Razorback off. So GiDDoLo loses the Razorback and immediately starts building another one very curiously. I think that's kind of surprising. Usually, as good as the Razorback is, most people, if they, well, you know what? If the Razorback almost inevitably dies, and usually once they lose it, they're usually just content to let it go, move on in their tech, and then if they want to get another vehicle, they'll be getting a Predator in Tier 3. Meanwhile, over here, wow, the Ogrins have actually been used to really press. This is Max Power. They've really been used to press Max Power back. And he actually managed to get mostly a full power farm destruction. In fact, he did take out the whole power farm as well as decapping it. So he's actually doing a lot. Now he's running away from the Dreadnought, even though the Ogrins can do heavy melee damage to do damage to the Dreadnought. But he doesn't want them to get hit by the Emperor's Fist, so he just keeps microing away. And this is tough because the Ogrins are his only source of damage against the Dreadnought, but at the same time, he doesn't want them to get hit by the Emperor's Fist, which is exactly what happened right there. Once the Ogrins actually stop getting stunned, however, they can just go after the Dreadnought, and that's actually extremely dangerous for the Dreadnought, because now its sole source, its melee disruption, is actually gone. The Ogrins have been executed with Inspired Determination. They will probably finish off the Dreadnought. We had a Plasma Cannon shot and missed the Ogrins. There goes the Dreadnought. Beautiful play. Beautiful Inspired Determination play. definitely one of the best tools that the Commissar has. Now, unfortunately, when he did that, instead of just executing a regular Ogryn model, David actually executed the Bonehead Leader, which is a mistake. You don't want to do that. But David actually now switched out to the Xenos Power Claw, which is curious. It certainly does more damage. But at the same time, he committed to that Power Sword, although the Power Sword did do very, very well for him. Back over here, you know, we just got a new Razorback from GiDDoLo, and it's still working out, even though, as I said, most people are usually just content to let it go. It cannot afford to get that close to a Blood Crusher, however. Blood Crusher will do heavy melee damage and will actually do quite a bit of damage to it very quickly if it's actually allowed to stay in there. Meanwhile, double shotgun scouts from Aesthetically Pleasing, they're also upgraded with Sergeants. They're going to actually do a lot of range damage. They have short range, but once they get into range, they will actually do quite a bit of damage with their shotguns. Havoc is going to halt the advance, but the Assault Space Marines are going to jump in. Look at the damage that those scouts took from the Chaos Space Marines. Oh no! Jumping in while your teammate is manticoring. But it just might wipe out the Heretic Squad. It comes very close. It gets down to one model. So that was, yeah, it was Aesthetically Pleasing's jump. So just a little miscommunication. And now we have a bunker down in the middle, which is not terribly uncommon. Imperial Guard players will definitely use bunkers as a way of helping them hold hold contested VPs. But the Force Commander actually just teleported in so that he could steal the bunker. And now David is not getting any of the reinforcements. And it's very, very funny that Max Power is just staying in the bunker, just straight up denying it, even though it means his Force Commander can't be used for fighting. And now he's actually putting his tax back in there, and the funny thing is that David has no anti-garrison, so he can't actually do anything once all those units are inside. Very, very funny and cheeky, and very smart play by Max Power to straight up just steal the bunker, make that almost like his spearhead move to steal the bunker, and then that put him in a position where David really was just not going to be winning that engagement. Force Commander chasing after. Look at how fast he's going. Does he have? Yes, he has Armor of Alacrity. He's going to get it, I think. He does get it, and now that he's here, well, now that he's here, he just needs to go. But is just able to chase after that with that Armor of the Alacrity. Made him just so good for chasing down that Razorback, and that's definitely some of the strength of the Force Commander right there. He's a melee unit, so even with just the melee charge by itself, he is very good at chasing things down. And then he also has the Armor of the Alacrity to make himself go just a little bit faster. He's got speed 5.5 with the Armor of the Alacrity, which is actually really, really nice. Even though it's only a half of a point speed upgrade, it's actually really, really nice to get that little bit of speed upgrade. And I think the Armor of the Alacrity might even be a little underused and underrated because of that. It's usually Artificer Armor is favored because you're emphasizing the Force Commander being tanky, and the Force Commander is already very tanky. He just gets even more ridiculously tanky when he has that armor of Artificer Armor. All right, so David takes his bunker back, and meanwhile we got this is Sir Topi right here, just bashing this whole power farm now. Ogryn's, I think they're going to be in a little bit of trouble against both the Chaos Lord and the Bloodletters, but first, I guess maybe that's why David made it a priority to go for the Chaos Space Marines first, because the Chaos Space Marines were the unit that he was going to win against, and that he was definitely going to be able to force off. Oh man, David, unfortunately bleeding way too many Ogryn models and losing his Bonehead Leader again to this Chaos Lord. So David is, unfortunately, he's definitely paying a lot with the build that he's using. He's doing a lot of good things with it, but at the same time, it's being very, very costly, and it's probably just keeping him in Tier 2. Because everyone else in this game is in Tier 3. So David now actually pretty securely taking control of the contested VP, and they're going to need that secure control because their blue team has a 200-point VP lead. Meanwhile, we have Terminators out for GiDDoLo. Range Terminators with Storm Bolters do a lot of range damage. Oh, very nice plasma cannon on plasma cannon action. This one definitely not winning that game of chicken. And, I mean, just look at the damage that a single plasma cannon hit does. It did over about 500 damage just with a single strike to that whole squad. Now, one of the good things about putting a heavy weapon team in a bunker is that you can't jump on it. You can't jump on something that's garrisoned. And I think David might actually want to repair this bunker a little bit. We don't have a whole lot of anti-garrison here from the blue team, but they definitely have things that they could use to outright destroy the bunker. And that's also, David also needs to be very, very careful about that, because if a bunker is outright destroyed, whatever squad is inside it gets wiped regardless of how much health it has, even if it's at full. Just throwing down some Commissar mines. We actually don't have detectors from the blue team. Autocannon opening up on the guardsmen. That is such a great weapon against guardsmen. Just that area of effect damage, that very persistent area of effect damage, instead of a burst tool like a plasma cannon. And we now have a Nurgle Predator, which is actually destroying some of the mines. And David actually doesn't have a whole lot. David is holding, but he's not actually attacking. He's only holding, but he's not really actually damaging the blue team that much. But wow, GiDDoLo is actually right here behind them. And we have a Terminator call in right in front of double plasma tactical Marines, which I think is not such a great play, especially considering the levels. I actually think GiDDoLo needs to push down to support. While these Ogrins are coming, oh no, Ogrins I think are going to get wiped. They're in a lot of trouble right here. That is the end of David's Ogrins, unfortunately. Trying to go for that Predator. Unfortunately, a little too brazen, and David even lost another Guardsman squad. Where is his Manticore? I feel like with all the stuff that's going on right here, he could get some very, very juicy Manticore shots. And now GiDDoLo is getting forced off. I feel like if he had pushed down a little earlier, he would have done a little better. Taking advantage of the time when Sir Topi and Max Power were focusing on David. There goes a Manticore shot, nearly taking out a squad of heretics. This one very, very close to dying. Goes back to worshipping. And up top, we have a great unclean one from Nurland. He's still got his Blood Crusher alive at nearly level 3. And we have this Plasma Cannon right here. The Blood Crusher does get hit by the Plasma Cannon, but it also... the Blood Crusher does manage to get in on the Plasma Cannon. Alright, meanwhile back here, oh no! We have Terminators that just got completely overrun. Very, very smart play by Sir Topi, though. Actually kept his Heretics in play so that he could use the Speed Worship, and then he used the Bloodlust Global to just increase the damage that all of these units were doing to those Terminators. Now, Sir Topi, unfortunately, right there, very pointlessly lost a Chaos Space Marine squad. That time really just overextending. I don't know if you realize just how low one of his Chaos Space Marines was. But he used the Bloodlust Global, which is a global for the Chaos Lord. It's very similar to the Hammer Rage ability for the Orc Knobs when they have their huge hammers, except it's a global and it actually works on your entire army. So it's actually very powerful with the Chaos Lord, especially with a melee-centric build. So if you get Bloodletters, Khorne Space Marines, multiple Heretics, it can be a melee Chaos Lord. It's extremely powerful. There we actually just saw it used on Chaos Space Marines to force melee Terminators, and it wiped out the Terminators. Heretics not in such a good position right now. These Heretics might get forced off, but I was actually going to say that they might get wiped, but the Assault Marines jumped down but then didn't attack. Blood Crusher right here. Did get hit by a Melta Bomb. Assault Marine Sergeant dies for Aesthetically Pleasing's Assault Marines. And now we even have some Chaos Terminators for Sir Topi, an interesting place to call them in. He's not really in this lane. The color scheme for Aesthetically Pleasing, to be honest, is actually not that aesthetically pleasing. It definitely stands out a lot, but I would not call it aesthetically pleasing. Now, the positioning of his Land Raider is actually not so great, because if the Blood Crusher and the Great Unclean One get close to the Great Unclean One, they will actually be doing a lot of damage to it, and the Land Raider won't actually be doing that well to fight back. We got a Predator now out for GiDDoLo. At this point, I think it would be worth his while to upgrade to a las cannon. I think the best thing that Predator could do would be to hunt down vehicles and super units, and the best way it could do that would be with a las cannon. Keeping the autocannon would be better for dealing with infantry. Alright, meanwhile down here we have David now using Inspired Determination on his guardsmen. He got a new guardsman squad, and he's actually finally going to tier 3. He also does have plasma guns on his guardsmen. I feel like he didn't have that for a while. We also have the Commissar. He's had stubbornness for a while. That does allow him to regenerate his health when his units are near him. He still needs to repair that bunker so that it does not get destroyed. But it's a double cap for the blue team. Yeah, David needs to get this point right here, and then the red team is really going to need to make a push for this victory point like now. And with a unit like Tactical Marines that can actually... Wow, look at the range on the Cyclone missile launcher. I didn't know that it had that kind of range. Force Commander teleporting into these Plasma Cannon Devastators. That's really, really bad for the Plasma Cannon Devastators. They need to get out of there. They're retreating right to the Land Raider. They're going to need to go inside the Land Raider if the Force Commander chases after them, and they do, in fact, go inside the Land Raider. Force Commander will... I was going to say would probably do a Flesh over Steel, but actually just decides not to press his luck there because he was about to die. So Red Team can't really afford to drop their VPs anymore, so they really need to hold. Oh, we had... Alright, Blood Crusher down. We had the Tactical Marine Missile Launcher pulled away. Now, this is going to be tough, because Sir Topi right here, or is this Nurland, is going to do something like just stand on the point with his Chaos Lord, not care about the damage, and he's just going to certainly get the decap off, and maybe even the cap off. He should activate his energy shield if he wants to capture, and he's gonna. There's gonna be an Imperial Abyss, but most of the squads are just gonna go inside to protect themselves from the Abyss. But this is actually really, really bad, and this could actually be the end of the game right here, with that Chaos Lord just using his tankiness to just stand right on the point and not care about getting attacked or disrupted. And they need to put a unit right back on that point if they want to stay in the game. But here is an orbital bombardment. David moving his units around, hoping he can get a decap off. I don't know if his guardsmen can do it. His guardsmen need to stay on the point because it's certainly not going to happen with his Commissar. And I think that's actually just going to be the game unless these Terminators get on the point now, but they're too busy prioritizing attacking, which is unfortunately not a good choice. They can straight up tank Havoc Fire while they capture the point. That's really going to be their only chance, and I don't know if it's going to be very, very close. Meanwhile, we got blue team stuff over here that's probably going to capture this point, so I actually don't really see how this could go in favor of the red team. But we do have GiDDoLo nevertheless whiting out one of the VPs and evening them out. I don't know how long it's going to last. Those guys got out of there, but they're going to get this VP back again. It's now actually a single cap for the red team. Single cap for the red team, but then we have this one being decapped again. This is getting very, very close again. Wow, a rocket run just to stall a VP cap. Because that's one of the only things that would knock down a Chaos Lord. That's one of the great things about these unshakable heroes or anything that cannot be knocked down. The fact that it just can't be knocked down, so it's very good for just going for a cap later in the game. Luckily, the Commissar Lord at level 8 with a Xenos Power Claw does a huge amount of damage. Even though he doesn't quite have the tankiness on par with these tanky melee heroes, he definitely has the damage. Heavy weapon team going to set up. Very good timing with that heavy weapon team as these guys are right here. And moving back the Commissar, I don't think he is retreated, but just moving him back as the time comes. Very, very smart play by David. He's going to start using his plasma guns to force off all of these units. Oh no! Vanguard veterans actually getting on the point. The guardsmen actually need to prioritize the tactical marines who are capturing too fast. This is cutting it very, very close. He actually gets the point off, but loses the Tactical Marine squad entirely. And now the Commissar Lord, or did he knock it off? Commissar Lord needs to be very, very careful. We have a Imperial Abyss for late game VP denial. That is one of the few good uses for the Imperial Abyss these days. Wow, even risking the lives of these guardsmen, trying to get that point back. He's cutting it very close and actually does not lose that squad. Very, very nice play. Leman Russ now out for David. The efforts we're seeing by these players to hold these points are incredibly miraculous. We see, I don't know how much longer they can keep it going though. Manticore Strike going in, taking out some of those things. Unfortunately, David at this point is definitely going to have to give up this bottom part. But we see the blue team is trying to get back this top VP. Unfortunately, I don't think the Orbital Bombardment is going to deny the Chaos Lord from capping. It's going to hold him up in the air. If it can explode and throw him off before it can finish, which I think it actually might, actually does get him off the point. Gets him off the point, and the Great Unclean One now is going to die. Force Commander from GiDDoLo teleports in, taking out this Predator from Nurland, and the Chaos Lord goes down. And we're going to see the, definitely going to see the Great Unclean One die right here. So Great Unclean One goes down. Now Aesthetically Pleasing needs to get the hell out of the way. So does GiDDoLo before they lose things to this Great Unclean One exploding. All right, they are responding in time, and they will be fine. I do remember one time, a long time ago, watching a cast by Indrid where someone just left their full health knobs right next to a Great Unclean One, and then the Great Unclean One exploded and then wiped full health knobs. So red now with a 2-1. Can they hold it for the rest of the game? We have Chaos Space Marines just trying to go for the cap, but they don't have a chance, and they just straight up get wiped. The blue team is losing everything in their efforts just to try to get the things on the point, just to get bodies on the point. Now we have a Land Raider Redeemer from Max Power, but that's actually not going to be such a great choice. Because the Land Raider Redeemer is not going to be able to... It's not really going to be able to effectively fight off the Leman Russ. The Leman Russ does need some repairs. That being said, I mean, the blue team still actually has this bottom VP, but the red team has pretty secure control of the top. But David is still fighting for the bottom, and he still has the potential to take it. His Commissar Lord has been doing so much work. Now, the blue team needs to be very, very careful. The red team needs to be very, very careful so that they don't give up these top VPs. They do have things. They are just very nicely secure up there. We got a new Predator out from Nurland. And we have some Chaos Space Marines, some Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines actually going for this point. Actually, the positioning of this Plasma Cannon Devastator is not so great in the sense that it really opens themselves up to a flank just like that. Luckily, we do have a quick response from GiDDoLo with his double level 4 plasma attacks, which individually are not as good as a level 4 Tzeentch Chaos Space Marine squad, but luckily there are 2 of them, so they're going to win. I don't know why GiDDoLo... Oh, God. Another Imperial Abyss. GiDDoLo, I was going to say, what is GiDDoLo asking for help for? Oh, because there's more stuff coming over here. But meanwhile, David's going to get this point back. He's got now turned his heavy weapon team into a las cannon, and he's got an Imperial Guard bunker set up. Meanwhile, man, we have so much global use from David. Unfortunately, he's actually not going to last and is not able to hold this bottom point. He's going to lose the las cannon. Leman Russ still taking shots at this. Leman Russ, it still has the default battle cannon, but the blue team hasn't yet captured this bottom point. They're going for it, but I don't think they're going to get it. There's only a squad of Heretics up here, so the red team is keeping control of the top VPs. Heretics might even go down. Grenade on retreat, not even really necessary at this point. It doesn't matter. Land Raider is not in a good spot, but it doesn't matter because the red team takes it. We saw so many heroic efforts from both... certainly aesthetically pleasing right now is the one with the army, but we saw so many heroic efforts from GiDDoLo. right, especially right here with the Terminator call-in to just get this VP back when it was literally their only chance to get the VP back. The orbital bombardment that threw the Chaos Lord off again, and then down here we saw a rocket run that threw off a Chaos Lord, and just the very, very good play from the Commissar Lord and the Imperial Guard in general to really hold the line down here. That was a great game. That came from my buddy David, great guy, gives me great replays. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.